Mhm. Okay, so today we're going to talk about types of organizational risks. Implement a risk management program. So, corporate governance issue is how the companies are run for four major types of companies. There's a market-based well, I guess these aren't companies; these are economies. There's a market-based economy, which is efficient equity markets, diverse ownership. Diverse ownership being the key here. US, UK, Australia, Canada, basically places settled by the UK. Family-based, which is management and ownership are combined in kind of family style. Hong Kong, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, France, and Taiwan. So interesting enough, some Europe, some Asia, where it's more of a family-owned type of thing than efficient equity markets. And then there's bank-based, so government influence in banking, family control. Interesting enough, Germany's this way, and South Korea. And then there's government affiliated, which is the state ownership, no transparency, no minority influence. This is China and Russia. They're not closed economies, but they're run by the states. The closed economy would be North Korea. So risk assessment, process of evaluating the likelihood of occurrence and severity of impact to various uncertainties or risks an entity faces. So you've heard a lot about this the last few years, especially with the pandemic. Financial risks is one type of risk. So, what's the financial security of the company or the supply base? What problems can occur if we are buying from a financially unstable company? Besides, we have to find a new supplier because it goes under. I was just talking with Marcus today about set off. So it's in our T's and C's, and we can, if they owe us money, we can set off what we owe them. And they just end up getting shorted. It'd be nice if we actually told them that, but we don't oftentimes. Um, Identify the events that are possible within a given industry and estimate the impact. For example, retail software, a lot of patent infringement issues there. Food poisoning in the food service industry. Was it Chipotle a couple years back had the bad lettuce or something? Commercial truck manufacturer, quality defects that require recalls. Same with automotive. Other financial factors, ownership, funding, payables, receivables. And then there's operational risks caused by inadequate or failed processes at the supplier or the customer. Usually, if the operational risk, it's a JIT problem where it stands for just isn't there. It's usually shortages at the line. So operations are usually shorter term than a business continuity risk. It's not the business isn't in trouble so much, it's just not shipping on time. Theft or fraud is an operational risk. Next day error, material obsolescence, material price increase, due to allocation, low yield, or some other change. Missing part because of late delivery, quality defects, or instability. Contractual risk, currency risk, past performance you can look at. But notice none of these things are considered to be force majeure. If you're shipping late, you're shipping late. That's not due to acts of God, although some would like to believe it is. Business continuity risks. These are natural disasters and supply interruptions due to various causes. So history of supply chain disruptions, is your supplier based in a flood zone or an earthquake zone? Shortages, disaster history, hurricanes, earthquakes, tornadoes, floods, conflict minerals usage by suppliers. This is a big risk because if they're getting their conflict minerals from the Congo, blood diamonds and such, It's a very bad PR. Change of supplier ownership. This is always a risk when supplier ownership changes. You don't know what the new ownership's priorities will be. And oftentimes we see in the heavy truck industry, they want to go do automotive. Template business continuity assessment. So I don't know whether this is ours or ISM's. Let's see here. This is ISM's. This is just a bunch of questions you can ask the supplier and get an assessment of what the continuity risk is. Then there's technical risks. These are also operational risks. Infrastructure security, risk to the systems, process disruptions. So a risk that technology will not function as planned, always a huge risk. Uh, so if you don't do pre-deployment testing and you just jump right, turn the system on, that's a big risk. Usually doesn't work. And new technologies will emerge. You got to be constantly looking for the latest thing in IT, especially. Data security risks. These are becoming more and more prevalent. Ranking of suppliers based on their inherent risks of data security, use of standards or self-assessments, cloud-based technologies, map the data flows in the supply chain, plan a comprehensive risk assessment, and align with emerging standards. So our IT guys should be doing this, hopefully. Insure but never depend on it. Insurance can cover some liabilities, but they will fight you if they have to pay a bunch of money. Then there's reputational risks. Its brand or reputation will be harmed by some outside force. So brand risk, identifying factors to sustain the brand, for example, quality, customer use and satisfaction, marketing communications, and monitoring these factors for direct changes. So quality is our big one. For purchasing, these factors are viewed in relation to the products that our suppliers produce. So we can't go out and get the same parts that Freightliner or a Navistar especially are going to get for their medium duty trucks because they're just garbage. And it really makes us look bad. One method for quantifying the impact of brand degradation is to determine the premium received for the branded product versus another product. So what is the premium for a PACCAR truck over a Navistar truck or a Freightliner truck? I don't know. You could probably mathematically figure that out if you went to enough dealers. Organization can then monitor this premium over time. So it's just saying, what sales should be doing is monitoring that, how much of a premium are we getting? Because it will expand and contract based on the market. Public relations risk. So the risk of receiving negative publicity in the media. And this, our buds down south at Nike ran into this problem a few years back where they were getting all their clothing made from sweatshops in India that block the fire exits and the place burns down and kills a bunch of people. And I mean, Nike's like, hey, they were just a supplier. It's like, yeah, well, you should have known better. Public opinion can really go against you in situations like that. So, prison labor, blocking fire exits, shoddy construction of factory buildings so they collapse in an earthquake. These things are all bad news, public relation nightmares that you don't want to be a part of. Blood diamonds, getting parts from North Korea, all that good kind of stuff. And then with social media today, bad things spread quickly. You got to ensure that your suppliers don't generate any negative publicity. So this is what happened with Nike. Apple's run into this a time or two also. It's like it's not enough to say it's just your supplier. You have no control over them. Yeah, you do. You don't have to buy from them. Regulatory risks. So we run into this a lot with DOT and NHTSA. Legal actions or compliance with regulations, recalls, risk allocation or risk shifting clauses in a contract, limitation of liabilities, indemnification, warranties, disclaimers. These are all risk shifting clauses in a contract. Basic risk is who has authority to commit the company to a purchase component. So this is contract formation and goes in contract law under the UCC or Universal Commercial Code. What constitutes an enforceable contract? What are the minimum requirements? Most of this stuff is addressed with the purchasing policies or purchasing procedures. Capacity does the agent making the commitment or signing the document have the authority to bind on the principal? So in PACCAR, if you're signing a long-term agreement, commodity manager does not have the authority to do that because our procedures say that they're not giving it to them. That's reserved for the vice president. But by agency law, the commodity manager at PACCAR could sign for the LTA. But because our internal procedures say no, then they can't. The legal jurisdiction is an international dispute. So this is why we have separate contracts between us and DOF. Treaties and agreements are typical methods of influencing business operations, and WTO defines internationally acceptable economic practices of its member nations. Yeah, doesn't mean everybody follows them. Every contract should clearly state which country's laws will govern the geographical location for dispute settlement. And this is usually the sticking part between Europe and US. If the organization that loses the lawsuit does not have any assets in the country to seize, then it may not matter who wins or loses. So when I was working as commodity manager, legal used to tell me, you can't sign up with an LTA with a company from China that has no assets in the US, because even if you win, there's nothing to get. Employment, immigration and discrimination issues at the supplier, at will employment, the employee can terminate at any time. So US is an at will employment country, but not all countries are at will employment. So especially some of the countries in Europe, employment contracts may be in place limiting termination. So try to fire somebody in Italy. It'll take you a while. Independent contractors must be truly independent and pay taxes quarterly. So Microsoft got hammered in the 90s for treating contractors as employees, but paying them as contractors. And the reason they got taken to court was the US government took them to court because these people weren't paying their taxes. And that upset the government dearly. So they went after the people with all the money, which was Microsoft. Employment practices, promotions and demotions must be reviewed, ensure they follow the country's laws and internal companies' procedures. And worker health and safety covers items like machine guard, safety equipment. So this goes directly to what we were talking about, reputational risk, public relations. If your suppliers are operating with unsafely, it's going to come back and just kill you sooner or later. Intellectual property issues patents, trademarks, copyrights, or includes patents, trademark, copyrights, all that good kind of stuff. Many countries have laws covering intellectual property, and you got to know what countries, how they treat intellectual property. So one source is here, American Society for International Law. And then patents and copyrights and trade secrets. Does the country have laws protecting that stuff? Like China, they say they do, but they don't. So utility, there's a couple of different types of patents. There's the utility patent, which is most common, protects the functional aspects of an invention. And then the design patent. If the main feature of the product is appearance, then a design patent will protect this feature better. Freedom to operate analysis and opinion. This is what our legal team does. And if you've got questions on whether you can source something, especially if it's coming from a suspect country, you should get our attorneys to do a freedom to operate analysis and see if there's any patent violation going on. Whether such protection exists outside the country's borders depends on the existence of trade agreements. And there's something called the WIPO, WIPO. seeks to align the different countries' laws. But it comes down to, whether, like in China, they're just not going to do anything. Trademark, this is identifying label, exclusive use of the product. So you can register trademarks, copyright, it's usually literary, musical, or other intellectual property. It usually lasts 70 years. And then trade secrets. So this is things like the Coca-Cola formula. Geopolitical threats, this is war, terrorism. This is another group of risks. Environmental risks. Environmental events, pollution, epidemics, political upheavals, liability losses, torts, contractual obligations. Usually this one's related to that one. And then there's mitigation actions. Or insurance is the most common one. So I don't know if you've been to MCE, but they have these 4 major categories in MCE. And that's how further they go down. ISM adds these additional categories underneath each of them. So ISM kind of uses a finer tooth comb, but it's all the same stuff. And then top 100, I don't know if we still do this or not, but we used to on the top 100 report. There's a little risk rating here. And it's basically how quickly could you move the components away from the supplier. It's like 90 days, 180 days, a year, and each number corresponds to one of those. And then our controllers group will do risk analysis on our suppliers' financials statements, but they have to get a copy of them. If it's a private company, it's a little hard to get, and they keep them in the financial review database. All right. Which of the following can best be labeled as a brand or reputational risk?
B.
Yeah, I don't know what I'd pick here. This is kind of a goofy question. Brand reputation risk probably has to do something with quality. Maybe C. Let's see. C it is.
E.
Observed outside the organization, external problems are the ones that risk the brand. Yeah, I would call that more of an operational risk, but just me. Organization is debating the usefulness of a patent versus a trade secret for the new home intrusion detection system. It is believed that the technology will eventually be replaced with newer technology. Which of the following would best protect the organization's intellectual property?
A.
Yeah, that really kind of depends on something they're not telling you. How easy is it to reverse engineer this stuff? I guess A is as good as anything else. Let's say what these guys say. B, because patents provide a means for absolute protection of the technology, even though the information will be in the public domain.
Sorry, what was the answer to B?
Yeah, the answer was B.
Filing a patent.
Yeah, because they're asking.
Well, it's like it's the same
similar.
Answer.
Yeah.
It's just a different rationale of them. Okay.
Yeah, it's an opinion question, and they don't give you really enough information to answer the question either.
Yeah, I did have a supplier once that was like, "Oh, we have this like special fastener sorting technology, and we call it the black box, and we don't want to file it as a patent because then someone will see it in the public." And you can't look inside. I'm like, okay, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna steal your shit. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and you couldn't steal it in the US, but Chinese could certainly steal it.
Yeah.
So, all right, there's 6 questions out there. Why don't you guys go ahead and work on them and just raise your hand when you're done. We'll go over at 3:55, the latest. All right, go over some answers here and see how we do. Number 1 is Charlie. Because while parent-subsidiary relationships are common, resulting in government ownership isn't one of the 4.
Okay.
2,
Sorry. Why is it not D if it's global?
because it was asking which one wasn't. I was looking for a not.
Yeah, but in global business, you can't have. Well, I guess there are Chinese companies that operate in the United States.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't like that one. Okay. Next.
All right. 2 is Bravo. Corporate policies for protection of intellectual property are not likely to have content in them specifying prices to be paid. 3 is Alpha.
Why?
Oh, yeah. So this is, I knew there was some way to do the numbers. So first 2, and then it's 1 minus. So times 0.93. Okay.
Mm.
And then it's 1 minus to get 20%. Yeah. All right. 4 is Bravo. Risk of insolvency is a financial risk. 5 is Alpha. Intellectual property protection is a legal risk. I always hated this question. It's Charlie. And what they say, because while it lacks an ocean port, its excellent railroad system and adequate roads also provide a low cost and high volume freight mode for the site's raw materials.
But it doesn't say if the part is big or small.
Yeah, and it's an airport. You're gonna have to fly the stuff out of there.
Yeah. So like, yeah, that's good for tech stuff. Like Ireland is really good free trade zones and stuff like that. But yeah, that's a really bad question. Okay.
I never liked it.
I failed
All right.
today.
All right. Talk
Bye.
to you guys tomorrow. We'll have another round of risk stuff.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Jake.
See ya.